Plugin of the week comes from Universal Audio. It is the LA-6176 Classic Channel Strip. This is a plugin which is a hardware emulation of their very own gear. It's a channel strip that has been out for quite a number of years, I think going back to 2004 if I'm correct. There were two versions of it. There is the 610, which has an LA2A, and there is the 6176, which has the 1176 attached to it. Both have the Universal Audio preamp 610B, and basically what you get with that is, a hardware unit that can be used in a unison preamp, or actually, well, the emulation of the hardware unit, which can be used in a unison preamp for those of you who have a Universal Audio interface. And basically, you get all the gain, impedance controls, ability to run high impedance, gain control, a basic EQ with two shelving knobs on it, pad, high pass filter, and then you get one of two choices here between an 1176 or an LA2A. So if you have the hardware unit, you get one or the other. Here, you get both options available to you. Now, basically, this is giving you the same stuff that you have, or you may have, from the Universal Audio collection. If you have the 610B, then you have this part. If you have an 1176 or the LA2A emulation, then you have that part. And aside from a couple of minor things that you can kind of throw in here, like there's actually a little tilt filter which goes into the sidechain that doesn't exist on the original 1176. But for the most part, its biggest benefit, I believe, is really in its unison form. If you're not familiar with that hardware unit, it's a really good one. But let's start by kind of just showing what it can do, because whether you actually pick this one up or if it's part of your UADX Spark subscription, that you automatically get it thrown in for free, like a Christmas gift. And otherwise, it can be purchased, which will also run on the satellites. It's interesting that some of the more recent plugins have not been adapted to work, and they're only as native. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so let's start with just like a simple vocal here. I'll kind of leave the preamp settings. Maybe we'll try something with the guitar part when we get to that with the preamp to kind of play with that. But just start with the basics here. I can bypass the limiter section or compressor section. I could also bypass the EQ section and just use the preamp. So let's just start there with the preamp. Listen to what that does.
I see the headlines in the morning, and I don't know what to believe. These papers should come wrapped up with a warning for those of us who may be easily deceived. They're building cars that drive themselves now, sending civilians into space. They got experts on the TV and the radio presenting the facts for one side of the case. And as I sit here by the fire, as our ancestors used to do, I can't help thinking I would give anything to still be so confused by the moon. I see the headlines in the morning, and I don't know what to believe. These papers should come wrapped up with a warning for those of us who may be easily deceived. They're building cars that drive themselves now, sending civilians into space. They got experts on the TV and the radio presenting the facts for one side of the case. I see the headlines in the morning, and I don't know what to believe. These papers should come wrapped up with a warning for those of us who may be easily deceived. They're building cars that drive themselves now, sending civilians into space.
Really brings like a nice warmth and richness. Each of the two settings here has a different, character to it. And then it's just a matter of kind of picking which flavor you want, which one is more responsive. But just pretty basic. Let's just kind of move on to a couple of other sounds, and then I'll dig into some of the other settings. There's just a couple things just real quick. You have the just to kind of go through the interface: high frequency shelf, low frequency shelf, each with three frequencies set to it. You have a gain control. This is prior to the tube preamp stage, or leading into the tube preamp stage. You can actually hit the select the mic just using it the way that I'm using it here, and it will give you some overdrive, and then there's a pad to help kind of attenuate in the level control. So all of this gain stage stuff is prior to the tube preamp. This is the output of the tube preamp. Feeds into an EQ section, so everything goes left to right. Three frequencies to select, booster attenuation to preset values, nothing in between. You can bypass the EQ section, you could bypass the compressor unit, you could bypass the whole unit. You have the selection between the LA-2A and the 1176. The only added feature is something that looks like I guess like a thrust or a nouveau curve in the side chain that seems to be more responsive to higher frequencies. That's just in the side chain, so it just makes the compression a bit more responsive to that. Maybe if the low end is making it less responsive than you want it to be. Then there is the LA2A. Now, it doesn't have that in here for the LA2A, which is interesting because there is that high-frequency roll-off filter, which you can throw in there on the original unit, so they didn't put that in here. I don't believe that's part of the hardware unit, this actual 6170 or 610 hardware unit. Otherwise, the meter, you could show input, gain reduction, or output level. Compressor limiter, it's basically, they say 3-to-1. I always thought it was 2-to-1. It's not that all the time. I think it just depends on input signal, frequency response, and a number of other factors, how much gain reduction you're getting. Limit is supposed to be infinity to 1, same kind of thing. On the 1176 side, the attack is, the whole idea of the FET compressor is super fast attack. So even at its fastest setting, it's 20 microseconds. And then at its fastest, 800 microseconds, which is 0.8 milliseconds, just to give you an idea of the attack. And then all of the ratios got an all button. If you go 1-to-1, then it basically disables the compression, but you're still getting the sound of the unit there. It's different than the bypass that's here. And then the all buttons mode, which they call British mode. I don't know why they call it British mode. It's nothing about the Brits that it wasn't even made there. Maybe some punter there like passed out and his head hit the buttons and pushed them all in, and it created a sound, and they said it's the British sound. I don't know. Who the hell knows? But yeah, anyway, I just call it all buttons mode. Let's go on to something else here. I wanted to put it on the piano just so you can warm up the piano. This is actually pretty cool here. right? Nice way to get some, like, rich low end in there, and then you can just back up on the gain, like a nice way to kind of get a little more sparkle out of it. Also works really well with bass. Let's kind of call up a bass sound here. This would be a classic, perfect thing for a bass sound. Now, if I put the pad in, I could actually just kind of, oops, I think if I go to the preamp side here, get a little saturation in there. Not exactly the right approach for this song. The pad will only work in mic mode. High Z mode, you can't go to that unless you're actually loading it into a unison preamp slot. So that kind of is what it is. And then there's the high frequency cutoff, right? Or low frequency cutoff, sorry, low high pass filter. There, let me see if I can kind of control that attack a little bit here. There's also a wet dry control. Just quickly, this is mixing the input signal prior to the preamp and EQ in with the whole unit. So it's actually the input signal coming in splits to the dry part of this, so that would be just dry, just like you bypassed it, and then it would be mixing in the full sound here. So that would be the other way to go about this. Right. What's cool about this is you can also, when you set up one, you could switch back and forth between them to see which one you prefer. Let's go with the 1176 just to kind of warm up the sound here. There's actually an amp here. I'll just kind of throw this on here real quick. I'm not sure which one. I think it's this one. This one I could play around a little bit more with the saturation here. Let's see. Not sure it's the right vibe for this, but and also hard to get the gain because this is part of the saturation here. Here, we'll play around here with the all buttons mode. That is perfectly dreadful. I'm going to go back to where I was here. And go back to kind of like a normal mode here for this. Maybe I can go to the LA-2A for this.
Sending civilians into space. They got experts on the TV and the radio, presenting the facts for one side of the case. And there's a seat here by the fire, as our ancestors used to do. I can't help thinking I would give anything to still be so confused by the moon. These algorithms really know me so well, I think I'd place the bet. I want everything they're advertising to me.
But you can really hear how it really adds to the depth and presence and warmth of everything. You know, particularly the preamp, and then just the combination of that with the 1176 or the LA-2A. Just matches up very nicely. And also the other benefit of having it, you know, rather than two separate plugins, you're getting it all in one plugin slot. And you know, if that's like a bigger benefit. And if you have the Unison preamp, it's definitely worth checking out. All right, there you have it. There's like a quick demo, about as quick as I can do anyway, of the Universal Audio LA-6176 classic channel strip, combination of the channel strip 6176 and the LA-610. A nice one, really good one. Also, it's all native, which is another benefit. I don't believe that the 610B is available as native. I could be wrong about that, at least not yet. All right, there you have it, plugin of the week.